Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hi-Fi Preschool and Kids Weekly Training Podcast. I'm so glad that all of you are joining us, whether you're driving the car, doing some laundry, or maybe like you're just getting ready for church this morning. Whatever you are doing, we are so glad that you are here with us as we jump into this truth of I am secure and that God takes care of me. And joining me today on the podcast, I have Kayla and Crystal, and I'm so excited that you both are here because today we are talking about how God is faithful. We are going to unpack that word faithful for kids and preschoolers. And I want to start off with just a fun question, just so we can, open it up, figure out what we're talking about today. So, question for you, Kayla, Crystal, is what is something that makes you feel taken care of?
Ooh, this is a good question. And I think it's maybe listeners, maybe you can resonate or not, but I feel like it's an interesting question because as ministry leaders, we're always the people taking care of other people. And so it's so hard for us sometimes to sit and think of like, okay, what does it look like for me to be taken care of? Because we're always the ones that are taking care of the other things. But I would say for me, it's really simple. One of the things that makes me feel really taken care of is when someone brings me a coffee. I love coffee or I love tea. I love, hot beverages on a cold morning. But it's something that I always do for myself. And it's such a small gesture, but it means so much to me that like when someone brings me coffee or fixes my coffee, that just communicates to me like, one, you see me, you know that I love coffee. And it's just it's a great way that I feel taken care of by other people.
Listeners, if you want to send a virtual coffee card, it's kayla.clifton@lifeway.com. So
that was not a plea from Kayla. That was not the intention. Really, listeners, you need to, my recommendation, I know you're making fun, but my recommendation is figure out what's the thing that brings you comfort and that helps you feel taken care of and share that with some of your close people because you really are someone who takes care of other people all the time. Mm-hmm. And it would be great to see your people do something to take care of you.
Yeah. And real talk, Kayla, like I love what you just said because sometimes people want to know, like they don't know what they don't know. And so if you share with people, man, I just love when somebody brings me a coffee. It's okay to put that out there because then people can be like, I've always wanted to know what would be meaningful. And now I can help you in a meaningful way. You don't want me to bring you a muffin. You don't want me to bring you a donut. You want me to bring you a coffee. I can do that. So that's good. I was going to say food, but I feel like that's too close to coffee. Like the same thing. But when people bring me food, like Kayla wants a coffee and I want, chicken patsy you. But I'll say something different. My oldest son is in college and he will text me randomly and say, "How you doing today, Ma?" And every time he texts that to me, it just warms my heart. And this last year was a pretty rough year for me. And I get those texts a lot now from a lot of people, not just my son, but lots of people will just text me and say, "Hey, just checking in. How you doing today? I'm thinking about you today. I'm praying for you today." And those little check-ins make me feel so cared for. They make me feel seen. They make me feel loved. I never would have thought I was somebody who really wanted something like that or even needed something like that. But it's like a hug every time. Somebody just saying, "Hey, thinking about you. How are you doing today?" So yeah, that would be mine.
Those are two great ways of being taken care of. And I think that as we look at this truth with preschoolers, if God takes care of me and with kids that I am secure, we can know that we aren't just secure in our coffee or in our message, but we are secure in the God who created us, who created the universe, who has an amazing plan for us, and we can celebrate that. So this week we are going to open up the Bible and we are going to look at 2 Kings. Yes, we are back in 2 Kings. We were there a few weeks ago. We are back there. We're with our buddy Elisha, and Elisha is facing some problems. In this story from 2 Kings chapter 6, we can see that the king of Aram has decided that he is going to attack Israel. But every time he attacks them, there is a problem. It seems like the king of Israel knows exactly what is going to happen. And that's because he does, because God is giving Elisha messages and saying, this is where you need to watch out. This is where you need to be weary. God had Israel securely in hand, to the point where the king of Aram is looking around saying, hey, where is the spy that is telling the king of Israel everything that I'm about to do? And one of his servants goes to him and says, no, it's not a spy, but it is actually God speaking to this prophet named Elisha. And Elisha is telling the king what is about to happen. So the king of Aram decides, all right, I'm going to go capture Elisha. So he sends his army and he surrounds the city to the point where when Elisha's servant wakes up in the morning, he looks out and he is afraid because he sees this giant army surrounding the city. And he goes to Elisha. He says, what are we going to do? And I love this part because Elisha prays. And he says, God, open the eyes of my servant. And when his eyes are open, there is the army of God surrounding the army of Aram, ready to keep Elisha secure. And I love this picture of security for Elijah, that God had Elisha. He took care of him in that moment. So then Elisha asks for the army to be made blind to who he is. So the army is made blind, and Elisha leads them all the way to Samaria, to the king of Israel. The king of Israel is like, what do I do with this whole army? And Elisha says, you know what? Send them home. And from then on, the king of Aram never attacked Israel again because God had them secure. He was faithful. He didn't just send Elisha out just to figure it out himself. No, he was faithful to Elisha and he took care of him. And I love this story. So now looking at this story, our kids and preschoolers see people exhibit unfaithfulness in their everyday lives with broken promises, disappointments, hurts, all of those things. So how can leaders lean in this week and show through their actions and words that God is faithful even when people are not?
Yeah, I think there's something that's very like heartfelt and kind of spiritual to this question, but also something very practical as well. So as far as the heartfelt one, I think that leaders need to recognize that kids and preschoolers either already have or for sure will experience the unfaithfulness of people and the unfaithfulness of the world. People who are going to let them down, people who are going to do the wrong thing, people who are going to cause hurt. There's so much disappointment and heartbreak that happens in our world. And it can be so easy to say, but why? Like, why? And the truth of the matter is, nothing that we can say ever makes that part better. But what we get to say is, I am so sorry. I am sorry that happened, but let's talk about the goodness of God and how he never lets us down. He never causes hurt. He never abandons us. He is always there for us. God is faithful. He doesn't change. His love is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So even when these hurts and these hard things happen, we can know and remember that God is with us. He is taking care of us. He loves us, and we can always count on him. Even if everything else in the world were to just fall away, God is there. God is loving. God is faithful. And it is such a great truth that we could tell them week after week after week. Now, on a more practical side, leaders have the incredible opportunity to demonstrate faithfulness to kids. And I'm not calling out anybody right now, but let me just say this. for the leaders who show up week after week after week. And you tell preschoolers and kids, I am here because I love God and I want to teach you about how much He loves you and how He is always there for you. You are demonstrating for them faithfulness. Oh man, I woke up this morning and I was not feeling it. I just wasn't, didn't want to come to church today. But then I remembered how much God loves me and He's always there for me. And I wanted to come here and I wanted to be with you. And we get to show them faithfulness in our faith, but also faithfulness in our service to them and being there for them week after week after week. It's just an incredible reminder that in this world, when things are so God, I don't know any other way to put it other than
There's no other way to put it.
There's no other way to put it. God is solid. We are secure in Him, and He is always, always faithful.
Crystal, that's such a great reminder, even for me as not as the part of the Hi-Fi team, but me as honestly a large group leader. When I get up on a Sunday morning, I'm like, ooh, all right, it's another Sunday morning. But we get to show that glimpse of faithfulness, a glimpse of who God is and His how He takes care of us each and every day. And that really is a great reminder, because kids do live in a broken world. Kids are seeing things out there that they can't trust, that aren't faithful. And in fact, in Flip the Script, it reminds us that for preschoolers and kids today, it says this, it says, their world is broken, unsafe, and scary. And they need to know where they can turn in the midst of frightening circumstances. So, Kayla, I want to ask you, how can what we are learning this week speak to this?
Yeah, as you were talking about the Bible story earlier, it was just such a great reminder to me, the things that kids and preschoolers see as unsafe, as scary, as uncertain, are the things that they see around them, right? And this story is so cool because it helps us see the things we can't see, right? Like this Elijah's servant could not see the huge army of God that was just waiting in the wings, ready and willing, just at the Lord's command to do exactly what He said when He said to do it. And we don't have those spiritual eyes to see those things in that way without, just the Lord doing something miraculous like He did in this situation with Elisha and the servant. But it just points to and helps us point kids and preschoolers to know there are a million things that God is doing that we can't see. And the things that we feel unsure about and scared about and uncertain about, that we don't know what's going to happen, God is in full control. And we can trust that He is doing exactly what He's planned and planning to do. And He is worthy of our trust because He is the God who is faithful. And so I think just bringing kids and preschoolers back to this understanding of who God is and who we are because of that, we can stand strong. We can stand knowing that He is faithful and that we can be secure in Him, even when we see the uncertainty that surrounds us. When we take our eyes off of that uncertainty and put it on the Lord, who is certain, who is secure, who is faithful, then we can be reminded that God is so much bigger than we give Him credit for. He is so much more trustworthy and more faithful and more loving and more kind than we know and understand. And that doesn't diminish the hurt. That doesn't diminish the scariness. Both can still be true. We can still feel scared in those situations, but we can also help kids and preschoolers know that our God is faithful to us And I think it's also helpful to remind them of the broken world that we live in. You know, we talk about 3 circles every week in kids, and on Hooray Days when we talk about it with preschoolers, but we talk about the brokenness of the world that we live in. And it's okay to remind our kids and preschoolers, God's heart breaks over the brokenness even more than it breaks our hearts. He is not okay with the broken world that we live in, and he has a plan of redemption and restoration that is coming. And just to be mindful that we can acknowledge the unsafe parts that we feel in our circumstances, and also help kids and preschoolers know that God is so much bigger than we know, and he is doing more that we can't see. We don't have insight into, but we can trust that he is faithful to us, and that is the God that we put our faith in.
I love that so much. Thank you so much, Kayla. Thank you so much, Crystal. Honestly, there's not much more we can say except we can celebrate that God is faithful, that he takes care of us, and we can be secure in him. So listeners, thank you so much for joining us this week. We really do love coming together, talking about these truths, talking about these main ideas, and really preparing for the coming week of Hi-Fi. We are so glad that you've joined us. And until next time, we'll talk to you later. Bye.